Welcome to In Bed with the Tillias. I'm Nick.
And I'm Courtney.
And this has been in the works for a long time. Y'all want a more in-depth, more complete, more detailed, more raunchy, more juicy look into our lives and the conversations that we have. We're going to be bringing on some of our friends and interesting people that we want to have conversations with. We're going to bring them into bed with us and have dope conversations. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to do it all. But the question we get asked most often is, how did we meet? Where did it all start?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to go back to the beginning. 1981. No,
grab a drink, get ready.
Grab a drink. It's going to be about 41 years worth of stories. No. We're about 6 years apart, a little over 6 years apart. We actually grew up only like 5 miles away from one another.
Yeah.
But worlds apart.
Totally different lives.
She grew up, if you're familiar with Phoenix, Arizona, Glendale, Arizona, she grew up in Peoria, Arizona, like 75th Avenue and Sweetwater.
Yes. Thunderbird-ish in there.
It gets nicer the further north you go there. I grew up at 67th Avenue in Bethany. Kind of hood, very diverse. Very different upbringings in those terms.
Yes.
People who lived where Courtney lived didn't traditionally come down south. We went up north. We went to like Arrowhead and the nice areas.
You guys came to us.
Yeah. But did you ever come down south where I was at?
I did. There was a great stamping store by you, and I would do
stamping.
I would do some killer stamping classes, and make some cards.
Did you scrapbook as well?
Yes. And actually, they did scrapbooking. You use the stamps in the scrapbooking. And let me tell you, this isn't just like your everyday stamping. Like, these are like $30, $40 stamps with high-tech tools. Over by you.
30, 40 bucks?
For a stamp.
And that was like our
a lot back in the day.
monthly grocery budget.
Yes. And like back in the day, like, what was I, like 10, 11? So like a long time ago, that's a lot for a stamp. You're having babies and I'm at stamping class.
There's a demographic, a geographic gap there, and there's also an age gap. 6 years doesn't seem like a lot, but in terms of like her knowing pop culture of like the 80s and the 90s.
I don't know pop culture very well.
Just was not there.
No.
Anyways.
I didn't grow up, like it just wasn't a thing in my area where I grew up with. I just didn't, it wasn't a thing.
Like I said, two very different worlds.
You're listening to John Denver.
Fucking John Denver. I was listening to Tupac and Biggie. You were listening to John Denver. We're not the same.
We're not the same.
Anyways, all right. So around the time that we meet. So when do we meet? What year? 2010. 2010. So 2010. I have 2 daughters. I'm just coming off the back end of a very difficult period in my life, a divorce, a lot of really dark, alone times, really rough time, but I'd done a lot of healing work on myself. I had really kind of changed the way that I saw things. And I always believed that even after that period in my life that I would have a family still and that I would meet somebody and that there would probably be more children involved. At the time I was working at this school, it was a private day school in Peoria, Arizona at the time. And I'd worked there for like 5 years. I had started as this kind of like paraprofessional and had become a teacher, had worked my way up to becoming essentially an administrator. And we were opening up a new campus, a new site that would be in Avondale, Arizona. And I was essentially the kind of vice principal, second in hand going to that place.
Right.
So I'm in one place in my life. Backtracking a little bit, we both went to Arizona State.
Yes.
But years apart. I went from like 99 to 2007. It took a long time to get my undergrad. But by the time you were going to ASU, I was doing mostly online and West Campus stuff. So we weren't on the same campus at the same time, but we both went to Arizona State.
I went from 2006 to 2010 for my bachelor's.
Gotcha. So you're finishing around 2010. You went for special education.
Yeah.
I
finished in.
What you finished in? What did you start as?
I started out as an aerospace engineer.
Fascinating. Why?
I wanted to be a pilot and go to be an astronaut.
You didn't know this. Courtney had her pilot's license before she had her driver's license.
Yeah, so I wanted to be a pilot and do the military and go that whole route. And my first class in aerospace engineering was a NASA class. The instructors worked for NASA and had a rover on Mars and were like fully in it. And I walked into this class and I was like, whoa, this isn't it for me. This isn't it.
Like
I love it.
You were in over your head or like just didn't
All
vibe
of it.
with?
I didn't vibe with it. I was in over my head. I didn't understand the calculus of it. And I would ask for help and they're like, we don't know what you don't get. And I was like, I don't get any of it. And so I knew that first day.
Amor has joined the podcast.
Hello,
and
welcome.
The show.
I knew that first day. Can you get your butt out of it?
Your butthole in
It's
the camera
not
is
in
probably
it.
not. This is not going to be approved on TikTok now.
Thank you so much. I just knew immediately that moment, like, this wasn't the right fit for me. I finished out the semester and learned a lot and had a lot of fun times, but that wasn't it.
Arizona State's great, by the way.
It's the best.
We had different experiences there. She lived in the Manzanita dorm, which is dirty. It's absolute trash.
It's trash. The like, I came home one day and the pipelines in between the floors had burst. And most people's stuff was destroyed. I didn't have a lot, but like my suite mates, all their stuff was gone. It was a fucking...
I somehow ended up at the Sonora dorm, which was the athletes dorm, so it was very nice, well taken care of. It was south of the campus. It was actually near what used to be Fraternity Row before President Crow got rid of Fraternity Row and all that stuff. It was a great party school back in the day. Very different now. But we had great college experiences.
I lived on the engineering floor in Manzanita, so...
How cool was that? Wild.
Honestly, though, like, they would do benders where they would, like, study hard for, like, 24 hours and then they'd drink for 24 hours, and it's wild. I don't know how they did it. You know me, I can't.
Ours was just constant partying and sports.
They still wanted their good grades and to pass, so it was a combo.
All right, so you're finishing college. We never run into each other. There were some.
We were at the same places. We were at a Pink concert.
I was there with my daughters. You were there with your mom.
And the manager of the bar.
But we never knowingly. And the manager of the bar.
He's the one who bought the tickets.
Oh, with you there, gotcha. But we never knowingly like cross paths.
Yes.
So, 2010. I think it's the summer. And the HR director at the school comes by and he hands me, I was working in the same classroom with the guy who's going to be principal at the new school. So, I mean, a little bit of it is justified, but it's not as well. Hands me a resume and is like, I think you might want to look at this one.
And let me tell you, my resume was not just your paper. Like, it actually had photos attached. One, because I believe in that. This was before that, though. I was Arizona State's graduate success story because I didn't have financial support from my family and had to take out personal loans, as well as I was very sick my junior and senior year with tonsillitis and strep. Every other week it seemed like I was at Arizona State's healthcare. Also had parasites really bad. And so I was sick a lot, but still managed to not only graduate, but I was like I think I was dean's list. So they had written an article about me, so there are photos in my resume. You were the girl
that was at the free clinic all the time?
I paid. That's why I couldn't get my diploma, because I owed them so much medical bills. Not even student tuition. I owed medical debt to the school.
I had parking tickets.
I had unpaid parking tickets.
I had lots. They wouldn't let me register for classes like every semester because I had unpaid parking tickets.
I did have some of
Parking
those.
at ASU me and ASU Transit and Parking, we still got beef. Fuck you guys.
I had to go to court against them my freshman year.
Parking and Transit?
Yeah.
Jesus. Hopefully they figured it out by now.
I know.
I don't think they have. I think they just charge kids a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
back on track.
I'm handed this resume. It's Courtney's resume. I'm looking at, I'm like, who's this girl? One, I can see the picture, so very, very enticed. My type, brown hair, olive skin. Couldn't see her ass in the photos, but came to find out that was on par too with what I like. But she had a background working at Clinique. She worked at this place where she tested jet fuel. I think it had on there that she had her pilot's license. I was like, this woman is very, very interesting. I'm intrigued. At that time, how did you even arrive at being at that school?
So, in the education program, you're each assigned a supervisor who overlooks your student teaching, comes and watches you teach, make sure that you're going through and meeting all the standards. And so I was assigned this woman. She was very lovely, very sweet, would come in. She's like, you're wonderful. I absolutely love you. You're an incredible teacher. My teacher that I worked for ended up having a baby a couple weeks into my student teaching, and I just took over the class. I ran the parent meetings. I just took over and did all the things.
Come to find out that's actually okay in Arizona now.
It's okay.
You don't even need a degree.
Okay. And you can, guess what? You don't get paid for it, and they don't have to hire a new teacher. You can just run the classroom for free.
Anybody can be a teacher in Arizona. I digress. Go ahead.
So anyway, my supervisor was good friends with the owner and president of the school that he worked at. Mm. And at the time of graduation, everybody's kind of trying to find where am I going to get a job, which I think is common in all fields. Where am I going to work? And she was like, I have a school for you that I think would be a great fit, that I think that you should apply for. Turns out I never applied for it. My teacher that I worked for was like, you don't want to work for that school. It's not good. And so anyway, the supervisor...
It was a great school. We were the best in the state, and maybe the best in the country at handling very challenging students. But people who had never been there heard horror stories of how difficult it was. There was a lot of crazy shit that went down there, but we were an excellent school.
I never actually did apply to the school. I'm not actually sure. I think I handed out, gave my supervisor, folders with my resume, but I never actually applied to the school.
Wow.
Yeah.
And actually, other things almost happened instead of that. You almost went to Oregon. You almost went to Hawaii.
Special ed teachers...
We almost never were.
No, I think we still would have. Special ed teachers are very in demand, and so they asked me to come to Hawaii, Oregon. I had all kinds of offers, teaching overseas, all kinds of things coming through to please, we'll pay you to teach.
Pay you to come here. Yeah. But Hawaii didn't work because you had your dog. I had a dog,
and they wouldn't, the quarantine process in a lot of houses there wouldn't allow dogs, so that didn't work out. I was actually supposed to go to college in Texas, and I declined that offer. So there's a lot of things that happened that declined and didn't work out along the way. And I think it's just so interesting that I never actually applied for this job that I ended up taking.
Right. So you end up at this school divinely. A lot of things had to fall apart for you to end up here, and you didn't even apply. Yeah. So you end up there.
I did one interview at the Tempe campus. And now they're like, we think you're a great fit. And I was like, did I get the job? And they're like, oh no, we're not trying to hire you. Hi, baby. And I was like, this is weird. So that's when I got called in from the principal that was going to be at the new campus.
Gotcha. Go ahead. I was going to say, you had a fiance at the time.
Yeah. Ish.
What do you mean, ish?
What? Move the dog. Yes, there was...
I feel like I need to be sipping for this.
Right? Sip the tea. There was, a level of commitment, but I knew it wasn't it, and I didn't know how to get out of it for my own safety.
How did you introduce him to people?
My fiancé.
Okay, gotcha. Just to be clear. She had a fiancé at the time.
Okay. Going back, though, when I did that interview... I remember the principal kept making this funny face, and I was like, what is going on? And he was like, I have one question for you. What is the Bong scholarship that I had received. He just had this like quirky look on his face. It was so funny.
But you brought your fiance to the interview.
To the actual interview, or
yes,
to the
yes,
paper
because I remember
signing?
him telling me she's great teacher, thinks she'd be wonderful. But it was really weird. She brought her fiance to the interview.
That is weird.
Who does that?
Who does that? A little college scared me.
And there was a little reservation around hiring such a hot young teacher. And I was like, said to the principal at the time, I was like, bro, come on, you got to do this. You got to hire her.
Do you think he regrets it now?
I don't care. Maybe.
I'm just curious. He was like, "That I knew it. My intuition was right."
You were trouble. But
Okay.
I won out. My desires, my prayers went out, and she was hired. I knew she had a fiance. I didn't see that as an issue or a problem eventually. I remember the first time I saw her, she had actually come in. I don't know if it was for an interview.
My first interview was right after my tonsillectomy.
Okay. You were alone though.
That's what I was saying. My interview, I was alone. It was when I came to sign
I don't
paperwork.
believe this. I heard you brought him to the interview. That's
No,
weird. That's awkward.
that.
Anyways, so I get a call from the HR director, and he's like, "Hey, that applicant's here, just so you know." So,
This is how HR works. This is the truth.
so I'm teaching at the time, but we have staff in the room. So I was like, I just asked my assistant. I was like, "Hey, take over real quick. Read the kids' fucking poetry or whatever it is." And I do a little lap through the front office, out the front door. I don't think I even went anywhere. I think I walked like I was walking to my car, and then came back in to do a flyby and check her out. And she was hot shit. I was smitten from that moment.
From the flyby.
Yep.
Yep.
So.
They told me they would call me in 2 weeks and let me know if I got it.
And
they called me like a week later and said that they wanted to offer me the position.
at the school that I would actually be at in
Yes.
second in command.
Yes.
So timing's actually good and not good, right? I'm just on the other side of my divorce. Done a lot of healing around it. Did my best to try to save what was there. It didn't work out. Not on my terms. It just didn't work out. I have 2 daughters. I think they would have been, 2010, they would have been 9 and 7-ish at the time.
7.
And so we start the school year. Courtney recalls the first time we met as...
Oh, I remember that moment. I went to go tour my classroom and see the school, and him and I shook hands in like a sensory play area. And I was like, oh fuck, like I just like felt this like energy, and I was like, god damn, he's so hot too. I don't know what that is, but we're all fucked.
And I had already felt something, and I'd seen her. She just didn't remember me walking by and doing the flyby in the office.
I was being interrogated by the secretary at the time. Actually, she was hounding me, and I was like, who is this person? Because you're not even the person interviewing me. Why are you treating me like this?
She could be a character in a school show like Abbott Elementary. She could absolutely be in there.
Yes.
So I felt this thing too with the handshake. Super awkward because I feel that in that moment, but literally her fiance is standing right there.
Yeah, he was with me in that moment.
And being nice and cordial, I shook his hand. He's this shorter but roided up fucking UFC martial arts addict, also that we know, bodybuilder, and tries to like break my hand. He obviously
felt it too.
Was threatened. Tries to break my hand with that. And so we start the school year. We didn't actually start dating until like maybe 6 months in.
Yeah.
But there was always some sort of connection. There was a fun and playfulness.
Yeah.
There was a flirting that happened. Courtney had one of the most difficult students I've ever had. Actually, a few of them in her class. She only had like 5 students, and they were hard.
And 3 of the 5 were like, I mean, they were all hard in their own way, but yeah. 3.
So divinely, I spent a lot of time and my assistant supporting that classroom.
Yeah.
And her. And at some point, we started emailing back and forth on the school server. Nothing like overly flirty, playful.
Just like playful. I ate a lot of McDonald's, and so he would joke about me eating McDonald's a lot.
It was a lot of good like banter, and we'd send photos and stuff back and forth. Often it was professional. It was discussing students and protocol and behavioral plans. I was trying to keep it professional. Courtney often directed it in the other way.
What? Where's the evidence?
On the school server.
The school still has.
Somebody's gonna uncover that at some point and be like,
and release it, and
what
they'll be
was
like,
happening?
What the hell?
If you ever see that in TMZ or the Post, I will not be authenticating this stuff.
I feel like a lot of it was about McDonald's. I remember us talking about my chicken nugget addiction. But then came this time.
You were always attractive, but you were very sodium swollen back then when we look at photos.
Oh, yeah.
You're like,
it was a hard time in my life. I was still bartending while teaching, and so on Friday and Friday I would work a 24-hour day. I would teach all day and then go straight from teaching, literally with clothes in my car, straight to the bar, bartend till like 3, 4 in the morning, and then drive home, which was the dumbest thing. It was like a 40-minute drive home. And there were sometimes, I don't even know how I made it home because my eyes would be like closing. God was like, give me the wheel. This girl and her Saturn.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Jesus, take the wheel. In the Saturn stick shift vehicle.
Didn't you order pizza so you could eat pizza on the way home?
I would have Hungry Howie's bacon pizza on my way home.
Which, by the way, we don't have a sponsor yet for the show. We've rolled out without securing a sponsor. So, Hungry Howie's. Anybody wants to be a sponsor, holler at us. Maybe you.
Maybe clothes,
could be you.
Drinks. We're open.
Bombshell, tequila companies. Legends, Nike.
Right.
Hit us up. This could be your sign right behind us.
Right. So yeah, I was working a lot and eating garbage, and I was doing a lot of pre-workout, and so it was really just nuts. It was a rough 6 months of my life. I also had a heroin addict living with me, so it was really a time.
My life was actually figured out more than it had ever been.
Yeah.
Which I think actually did serve as a good thing because I was very grounded by the time it was us talking and dating. I was in a really good place.
Yeah.
You, not so much. You were kind of a fucking mess.
I was a mess. We did start this like little banter at work where we would steal things from each other's classrooms. Yeah. This like glass cupcake I never found again. It just disappeared into the abyss.
I stole it from you, and someone like literally stole it.
And literally stole it. I would take his stapler and we would decorate it and like bedazzle it. He had a really good stapler, and in teaching that's like a really coveted item. And then one day I stole a photo of him and his 2 girls, and I put it on my desk, and I remember sitting there in the morning. I had a pet rabbit, class pet, and I would sit there and hold my class pet.
Rest in peace, Peter.
Sorry, Peter. And hold this rabbit and like look at this photo, and I just like I was like, this is my family. Like, this isn't just like, oh, coworker, I stole your shit. I was like, this is like my people.
Mm-hmm. And you sent me a picture of it. Emailed me a picture of it. And
on my desk.
And my response was...
It was like something like that's meant to be there or something.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
I think I said it looks good on your desk. You can keep it.
Yeah. Never came to get it. So I kept it.
It stayed there.
I think the staff was like, what the hell is this? Like, Courtney now has Nick's photo of him and his girls on her desk. I think that's when people are starting to be like, what is this?
What is going on here?
Yeah.
That was while you still had a fiancé.
Yes.
Well, as you referred to, a roommate.
A roommate.
So, like, we're still not like talking. It's just fun, playful banter. It's a little flirting. You actually had a rule. You had an objection to even the potential of dating me.
Yes. Because somebody was like, Courtney, you know Nick really likes you, Mr. Nick. And I was like, yeah, but he has a lot of baggage. Sorry. I have a heroin addict room.
I had all the baggage, yeah.
I literally had baggage at my house that needed out. So I had that rule because I had gone through so many step parents and been a stepchild myself that I didn't want to be in that situation again for somebody else. As a partner, as a stepmom, as any of it, like I just was like, it was a form of protection that I didn't want it.
I didn't know about this. I didn't think of myself or my kids as baggage.
Myself or my kids. It literally wasn't you or the kids, it was the exes that I considered having to deal with. Let me clarify. It was like having to deal with that.
Yeah.
But there was a fear of being a step parent and being like my step parents.
The girls actually knew you from being there at the school with me. They came to some events. We would actually do really cool, fun stuff for the families. Have like it was an open house, but we would have activities and stuff, and we'd do stuff for Halloween and stuff for Christmas.
Yeah.
So the girls actually knew Courtney. There's actually video or photos of them doing a cakewalk in Courtney's classroom for one of the things.
And that was the first time I met him. It's a really sweet moment.
Mm-hmm. So we get to around Christmas break that year. I think around that time we actually became Facebook friends. So there was some like.
Now it's getting a little more interesting.
It's getting a little more serious, right? Because there's social media overlap. But you had a really rough time that Christmas or that winter break.
Probably one of the worst. Yeah, I had started drinking. I'm not a big drinker. I would occasionally drink, and obviously went to Arizona State, so I know how to drink. But like I wasn't. I've heard some
stories of the light rail and shit after going to Fat Tuesdays.
I definitely did my drinking in college.
Right.
But I was not like a drinker as far as like a daily thing. And during that Christmas break, not having an outlet as far as going to work and escaping my current home life was really bad. And I just remember having, you know, those giant cans of beer that you pick up at the gas station? I was drinking those. No wonder I was so no wonder
chicken nuggets
and beers.
What is this chick?
I just remember like crying a lot and being like, I didn't know how to get myself out of that situation because he was on drugs and he was a black belt. And it was in my house that I was like, I knew at that time, I was like, the police aren't going to protect me. Even a restraining order is not going to protect me. My apartment complex isn't going to change the locks. They suck. And so I was literally in a place of like, I don't know what to do to get myself out of this. And so my escape turned into kind of drinking, and I did go to the gym.
Yeah. And even some low moments, I think it was Christmas that you said you were at his house or his parents' house, and
his sister confronted me and was like, why would you give him drugs? And I was like, listen, lady, you clearly don't know who I am because I'm afraid of drugs. Dare worked on me. I've never done anything. Alcohol is it. And so I was like, this lady has no idea. I'm scared, literally terrified of drugs. Like, no way.
Yeah. And hit such a low point. I think at one point you described taking just a bunch of like Benadryl and being so over it that.
Yeah, literally I was so afraid of drugs, but I also needed an escape, and alcohol wasn't working, that I remember one night looking at Benadryl and thinking, I know that I can pass out and fall asleep on this, but it won't kill me, was my thought. I don't actually know any statistics on that. And I took like 5 or 6 pills, and like I just remember trying to pick out a DVD on the floor and like slumped over because all the Benadryl had kicked in. And I was just like, this is not who I am. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I did it a few times. Like I did it like a handful of times that I took mass consumptions of Benadryl.
Yeah.
Terrible.
I know, at least for me, I was used to seeing you 5 days a week, every day. Yeah. And so I kind of got like my hit of that. Yeah. During that break, it was like, wow, like actually, like, I was sad. I missed having that interaction with you. So we come back to school after winter break in January or so. Mm-hmm. I think it was probably like our second week back from school. The national championship was there in Arizona, in Glendale. And Courtney had taken a bunch of her students. You went there, right?
We went to the library, but we had to pass by the stadium to get to the library.
Gotcha. So there's like a lot of traffic and shit going on. And I needed to know, because I also ran transportation, that they were safe and going to be back in time to get the van back, so we had dismissal and we could take kids home and all that. So I got her phone number. This is the first time I didn't have her phone number prior to this. Actually, amazingly, like everything was email
on the server,
and it was over from there.
It really was. The banter, because I didn't have a computer with me, like it was like the banter went from the email to the phone.
Yeah, and
never
it just
stopped.
continued. It didn't stop after that.
Yeah.
We were in constant conversation after that. I don't think it really progressed really fast. There was good conversations. There was an indication. I didn't know if you liked me or not, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I look like this. You were dating someone who looks completely different than me.
True.
Completely different circumstances, completely different personality. I thought you were one of those girls that like muscle beast with addiction problems. I'm a very grounded, skinny white dude with tats, no beard at the time.
No beard at the time.
I don't remember what you said.
You went out with some friends that night to the championship game.
Yep.
And I sent you
Joey Hill, shout out. Joey Hill and I went to hang out at Westgate during the national championship.
Yep. And I sent you some selfies, and you said you showed your friend selfies of me.
I did.
Yeah.
He already knew, but I definitely shared.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was like maybe a few days later, something indicated to me though that he wasn't your type and I was.
Yeah.
And at that moment I was like, oh, it's over then.
What do you remember what indicated that?
No, yeah, I don't remember what the conversation was, but there's something along the lines of like you literally said he's not really my type. I normally date, or my past boyfriends have been like tall and skinny, or I think you said nerdy too. I was like, well, that's not me. But
Did I say nerdy? Interesting. Because I dated like the military, like I dated within the ROTC pool.
Yeah, those guys are definitely not nerdy.
Also, I was running in the PF Chang's half marathon, and I was given a tracking device for my shoe. That you can send family like a link to sign up, where they'll get text notifications when you pass certain mile markers. It'll be like, Courtney passed this mile marker at this time or whatever. And I was like, I really wanted to send it to you. And I remember texting you and being like, do you want to get notifications on my marathon? And you were like, I don't remember, I'd love to, or...
Hell yeah, I'd love to, yep.
Yeah. And so
I actually would have come out to support you, but you didn't offer that.
Did I not?
Nope.
You know what's interesting though is nobody did. Nobody really did. My first one I ran, family came out. The second one, nobody did. And I think my dad dropped me off.
Well, I would have been there, but I wasn't invited.
Sorry.
Kind of the theme of the whole thing though was like at your pace. Like I didn't initiate anything. I didn't try to force anything. I just let it be at your pace, but I was always there, like gently adding pressure, in a good, non-forceful, non-creepy way.
Yeah.
I was just constantly present and leaning into you and engaging with you. But I let, like, you sent the first selfie, you sent the first sexy selfie. It was always on your terms.
Yeah.
Until we got further along and it kind of surrendered and it was like, you lead. But I just let it be what you were comfortable with.
Yeah.
And at some point the conversation just got more flirty. Like the interest there was actually really clear. You started referring to the fiancé as your roommate.
Yeah, it wasn't long after though that it was like a week or two after that I ran the marathon that he was removed by the police.
Yeah. So it felt slow in a lot was but it also moved really fast.
It moved really fast. The time frame from when our first text to when the roommate was removed was like 3 weeks maybe.
Yeah. It was like, I really want to hang out. We got to get rid of this guy.
Yeah. There were, yes, that. And I was genuinely getting concerned for my well-being. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think it's a Friday?
It was a Friday. Yeah.
It was a Friday. She had a plan in place to get rid of him. Her dad was actually helping at that time with those things. In the event that something went south, I was ready.
It still all was on me though. Like looking back on it, like you were very much like, let me know how I can support and help. But looking back with like family, like it was still on me. Like they weren't there until I texted and been like, I need help. Yeah. Where I was still me going up to somebody who's very addicted to drugs, going in and being like, you need to get out. You're kicked out. And so
a dangerous
situation, too, yeah. Then I'm like, wait, why did you wait for me to be like, help? Why weren't you already like in front of my house?
Yeah.
You know?
So I think it was a Friday, you talked about it, there was a plan to do it.
I didn't end up doing it. I don't even remember what happened, that I didn't end up doing it that Friday. My dad texted me Saturday morning, he's like, did you do it? And I was like, no. He's like, you have family in town. They would love to see you. And if you don't do it, you know you're not going to be able to go because you've got this situation. And so it was that. Obviously, I wanted to spend time with you. And so it was like, I remember being in the garage of my house and being like, okay, I'm going to go upstairs and do it. I went upstairs. He was like passed out in the bathroom, which was a common thing. And I was like, you're kicked out. You're like, you need to get your stuff and leave. And so it took him a little bit to come downstairs, and I was like, maybe he handled it well. Okay. I was standing in the kitchen, and then he starts like getting upset. I had an island, and we were like doing laps around the island, and I really think that island bought me so much time before my dad arrived, and then the police arrived. So, but that was, it was a really scary moment.
It was. That Friday, when you were supposed to do it, I think I went to the gym. I didn't have a plan. I think I had to go to like Marshall's or Ross. And
yes, you told me about shoes at Ross.
I bought these Pumas to fucking train in because I hadn't planned on going to the gym. But I was like a mile away. Yeah. And I was like, in an instant, like I'll be flying there and I might get my ass kicked, but I'm willing to.
This man.
But yeah, so you do it on Saturday.
I did it on a Saturday morning. The police ended up showing up and let him steal all of my Tiffany's jewelry, but he was gone, so it is what it is.
Price to pay. Small price to pay.
Small price to pay.
Did you hang out with the family?
I did. I did. I went to like an early dinner with them, and then you picked me up that night.
I did. I picked you up from your house. Our first date, we just went back to my place. I had a small 1-bedroom apartment for me and my girls. It was, Saturday would have been my day, so I must have arranged for them to hang out with my mom or something, because I always had my girls. I had my girls, and I usually had 3 to 4 of their friends having slumber parties at my house every fucking weekend.
And let me just say, too, you're such an incredible dad, because you really did always have them, and not like, no judgment, but there's a lot of people who like turn over their days a lot, but that wasn't you.
Yeah.
You really loved and enjoyed having them always.
Even in the early days of dating, like there were times where I was like, I feel like I need to be making more time for you, and I was worried that if I didn't, but I just wasn't willing to sacrifice things with them.
We made it work.
I always had them. Yeah. But yeah, that first day I picked you up, we go back to my place. I don't know if we had actually anything planned. You talked about cuddling and
I just wanted to cuddle.
And putting your butt on me.
Oh yes, I did say that.
When's the last time you had cuddled? Before that?
I don't have a time. Years?
Jeez.
Ever?
Yeah.
I don't know. Because not only with the roommate did I not cuddle, but like the boyfriend before I didn't cuddle because I didn't want him to touch me. So I'm like, maybe when I was a child.
Which is wild because physical touch is your thing. Like,
I know.
You're all over me.
I know. But I don't think I had cuddled for years.
Glad I could be that.
I know. It was great too. We talked in the kitchen for hours.
Ironically, I didn't have an island, but I had a counter, and we were on opposite sides of that. Very different than the conversation with kicking the ex out.
Yeah. But it like just flowed. Like we talked about our past, we joked, we bantered. I asked why Minnie looked so lean, and I was like,
you didn't say lean. You said why?
What did I say?
Why does she look like she's suffering? Why is she so skinny?
Did I say suffering?
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
Well, that was heartless, man. I can't believe you kept.
Do you look at photos of her then too? She wasn't even that skinny.
Okay, I was like, why is this? and he was like, I make fruit plates for the family, and I was like, fruit plates? And I remember in that moment that I was like, I'm gonna come into this like house and like feed the kids and the dog.
They were eating, even on a teacher salary, I still fed them well. The girls both ate meat at the time. We had chicken and veggies and fruit and a dessert every night.
Yeah. And the rest is pretty history. Like you had the girls and we always made it work.
But back to that night, like I remember standing on the opposite side of that counter from you, and I'd known her. I'd known many things about you, but I'd never got to know you intimately. I'd never gotten that like really vulnerable side, right? It was always like very funny, very like, but never the vulnerable. Even when you were talking about the fiance and kicking him out and all that stuff, like you never let yourself be like really vulnerable. But you softened that night and were so vulnerable and just honest and raw. I was like, oh, I'm gonna marry this girl, 1000%. I had a feeling and a sense of that from the beginning, but that was like, it's over. Like, I'm done. Any other girl that I was talking to was deleted that night.
Tears to my eyes.
It was done. And at some point, after having just such a great conversation, probably like 3 hours.
It was like maybe 3 or 4 hours, yeah.
I put on 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah.
And we cuddled on the couch. I think I spooned you. You laid in front of me, put your butt on me.
Yeah. He fell asleep because he was twitching.
You got the first taste of the twitching.
I got the first taste. We never kissed. We never did anything. We ended up moving to his bed, but I don't even think, like, I slept on...
Just to, like, sleep.
Yeah. Woke up to a text from my dad that was like, where are you? And I was like, oh God, I can't even imagine what this man is thinking of me. Like, moved out one guy and now I'm just like not home. But honestly, like, I'm a fucking adult too at the same time. I can be wherever the fuck I want.
23.
Yeah.
This is before like Ubers and shit like that.
Yeah.
So I dropped you home.
And he was waiting outside of my house.
Yep. There was no introduction. I was ready to meet your dad and shit like that, but you just jumped out the car. Like, I was like, bye, talk to you later.
I was a little nervous. I was like, oh, fuck, I'm in trouble. Which is so funny, like that, like, initial inner child instinct, which we'll probably talk about a lot on the show, of like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
I've done something wrong.
But I don't think we ever spent a night apart after that.
Just like because like even when he had the girls, I would come after they went to bed so that we could stay the night. But we didn't want to introduce me too soon as like a partner or a girlfriend or anything like that, just for everyone's safety.
So on nights I didn't have her, she would either come to my place or I'd go to her place and we'd stay. But we literally stayed together every night. We're inseparable after that. Worked together still, started driving to work together.
I know.
Which was interesting for people like to start to see and try to figure out. There were some fucking haters at our work that said awful things about me to her. So it felt like I was sometimes
I don't even remember
combating
those
that or trying to prove that I was a player, that I'd been through all the girls at school. It's true, but it wasn't because that's who I was. It was just the circumstances of where things were at the time. But it was interesting introducing that or kind of easing into that. We did a really good job because a lot of people didn't know until they started seeing us driving to school together.
I was going to say until I was pregnant.
Or until she got pregnant, right. But yeah, we were inseparable. I would stay at your house when nights I didn't have the girls, but I had them at least 50% of the time. So the nights that I did, I would get them to bed, they would fall asleep, and then Courtney would come over. There was one time where
my car broke down.
She messaged me and she's like, I can't come over tonight. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm thinking something is wrong. I'd had scenarios in the past where girls were like, we're spending too much time together and blah, blah, blah. Like, I had trauma around this. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And finally I get it out of her that her car is broken down. She had this old shitty Saturn and it had broken down.
The brakes had literally punched through. Like, I didn't have any brakes.
Yeah.
My approach to this in my dating life was like, I want you to rescue me.
Right.
I want you to like show me that you're interested or like, you know, chase me, I guess.
There was a lot of sabotaging moments. Like, if you think about, like, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Courtney did literally... I
did that.
All 10 of those, plus, like, another 10 to try to drive me away. Not consciously, not intentionally, but definitely could have put an end to us on a number of occasions.
Yeah.
And I didn't have, like, the resources to be able to, like, talk about or express how I felt about those things at the time. But I worked through them myself, and I just kept showing up.
Yeah.
And it was like, didn't matter what she did, I was still there. It didn't matter how much she tried to push me away, I was still there. Didn't matter how much maybe something she did hurt me, I was still there. And I just kept showing up until she stopped trying to sabotage it.
Yeah. I did some wild shit, and like, in that moment, when he finally was like, what's up, like, and I was like, oh, my car doesn't work, I can't drive it. I didn't even remember what you said, but I ended up running miles to his house. How far away? Like 5 miles each way?
It's probably about 5 miles, yeah. And it's
not at night.
It's not like running through the neighborhood. It's running through, if you're familiar with the west side of Arizona, it's like running through like Litchfield, down like, I think Dizer? Did you come down Dizer?
Yeah. There's no lights. It's like just dirt fields. And like looking back, I'm like, what the fuck? Coyotes, snakes, rats, like what the fuck? And also we had just watched this movie, The Human Centipede. I highly recommend not watching that. Terrible fucking movie. We didn't even finish it. But I was so afraid that I was going to be kidnapped and like sewn my face to someone's ass.
Looking back, I never should have let you do that. I should have figured out a way to get you there or pick you up. But you're like, no, I want to run. Give me
that was my cardio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I'll work out. It'll be great. And I also wanted to like prove how much I was like loving you and like loved our time together. It was like this, there were some weird dynamics at play, but but I was like, look how much I love you. I'm willing to run through the night in the wilderness.
Yeah.
You don't have to do dumb things to show someone you love them.
Yeah. And it was like 5 a.m. you got up to run back the next day before school.
My neighbor was a coworker, and he would get up early to do a van route and pick up the kids, and saw me running home like 30 minutes before I need to also be at work, and was like, Courtney, is that you?
It was like 5 a.m., 5:30.
I know, but it took me a while. I remember I just needed to like, I remember thinking like, I only have 40 minutes to get ready, and that's pushing it. But he was like, Courtney, is that you? And I was like, out for a morning run.
Yeah.
But
so that was the origins of it. We were inseparable. There was like, I think it was like 2 weeks that we were hanging out before we even kissed.
Yeah.
You kissed me both times. Both were interrupted. Once outside of Fat Tuesdays on Mill Avenue. The other one was outside of your apartment after a party. Yep. Both of them got interrupted by the same person. Later that night, though, we had a good makeout session. There was a lot of like dry humping on the couch for like 2 weeks. And
2 weeks.
She was getting her needs met. I was absolutely going through it. But again, I was never going to push the envelope. I was never going to be the one initiating. It was all at her comfort level.
Yeah. I was nervous about having, like, being intimate, but especially with the work dynamic, because you always hear, don't fuck people you work with. And essentially this is my boss, and our campus is really small. How many staff members? We have like 40, 50?
Well, probably less than that, like 30.
It's just a really small, very intimate place, which was the best year of teaching of my life. But I was like, if this doesn't work out, like, I'm in contract. Like, I have to be here for a little while longer. And I was like, I don't want, I was worried about that, but I was like, I didn't want to, I had this old story that it would, like, fuck up what we had. Or, like, you know, like, you only want one thing. Which you'd proven to me that was not it. Right. But there's still, like, that little fear that I hadn't worked through.
And there was a phase of testing me. There was a phase of, like, really feeling it out. And I just kept showing up.
Yeah.
Just
relentlessly, yeah.
Relentlessly, patient, with presence. I wore you down.
And it showed me, too, consistently that he was in it for, like, the long haul. Like, it wasn't ever a, like, I'm just here to like fuck you and be gone or something.
If that was the case, I would have given up way before that.
But I remember me cooking food in the kitchen, and you're like, "I'm gonna marry you someday," and that was before
in the kitchen in the apartment. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like before we had moved in together, which we moved in together after dating for 3 months.
Yeah.
And so it was very quick that I was like, I know that this is my. I knew he was my person when I met him, but I was like, confirmation.
Yeah. I think we should give the details of the first time, but we'll save that for the second episode of In Bed with the Tillias.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being on this ride with us. Thank you for hopping in bed, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.